Did you grow up like me thinking that rich people were greedy and evil? Well, you're not alone, because what if the real secret to wealth wasn't what you've been told and can actually flip your entire money mindset on its head? Tune in. We're going to talk about that right now. Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. This show is for you if you want to become work optional, where you make enough passive income to work because you want to, not because you have to. And if you not want to only get rich, but you want to live a rich life, because as you grow your wealth, as you become more financially independent, you have a greater capacity to bless the lives around you and create a massive ripple effect in other people's lives. That is what we're here to do today. By the way, if you're here because you want to become financially independent as well, be sure to check out our website, moneyripples.com, because we want to make sure that there's 1,000 families financially independent by the year 2030. That's in 5 years. Could that be you? Possibly. Could it be somebody else? Maybe that too. But heck, even if it's not 5 years, it could be 5 to 10 years out. And what could that do with your life and your freedom? Be sure to check out our website today. So let's talk about rich people and wealth, right? Those dirty scumbags, those people that make so much money by ripping us off. They're greedy, they're deceiving us or lying to us somehow, or maybe they just got lucky, right? Maybe there's just pure luck. They were in the right gene pool or the right race or the right circumstances or whatever it might have been. That's why they're rich. That's what I was led to believe growing up, especially because if you watch any kind of TV, come on. I mean, it was drilled into our brains just like this. How many of us watched Wall Street, right? How many of us watched Michael Douglas talk about that greed is good? And of course, he was the kind of the villain of the story, even though he's the main character. He's basically the villain, right? All the time you see the bad characters in movies. Well, who are they? Usually the rich people, some rich, some kind of entrepreneur or somebody that's just out there for corporate greed, only to screw everybody else over or possibly cause suffering and human life loss as a result. Never usually the government, but it's always the entrepreneurs, right? It's always the business owners, the rich billionaires, the multi-billionaires. Now, I'm not saying there aren't some bad people out there that do have lots of money. There is no doubt that's the case. We would be naive to say otherwise. But is that why they're rich? Is it just because they got lucky, because they had the right circumstances, the right gene pool? Was it because they're the right race, the right whatever, the right connections? Or is it just because they've deceived or, lied to people or screwed people over, stepped on people to get to the top, right? And destroyed people's lives so that they could be where they are today. Is that the case? Or is it just, pure luck or greed, right? What is it? And this is what I was led to believe. But the reality is much, much different. Let's look at that right now, okay? Because, yes, there are people like, for example, I know there's people that are greedy. There are people that are driven by money alone, and they'll do that. I know people personally that fit this description. Now, are they multi-billionaires? No. But are they multi-millionaires? Yes. Have there been people out there that are just really good, slick salespeople that know how to influence and deceive and do that kind of stuff? Yes. But I will tell you one thing. Principles always govern. Principles always govern. Those are not principles. Those are short-term strategies. They give you a short-term benefit, but eventually at some point it comes to a head, right? It always does. And that's the thing I want to pound in your brain, because I used to think it was all based on luck. I remember in high school, I remember I had a friend that always seemed to get the better jobs, right? And so he would bring me along with him. He would say, hey, I just got this job. I can get you in. So he was like my connection, but he seemed to have these crazy connections as well, which I realized later he kind of got through his father or something like that. Now, his father wasn't ultra wealthy or anything of that nature. In fact, his father was a minister, who also worked a job. He was kind of a part-time minister and worked full-time in another job there. But for the most part, he was, it was just an average guy. And so he had some connections, but I didn't feel like I had those. And so I was always raised, and even kind of through my experience, believed I just have to get in with the right people. Now, I am not here to tell you that having good connections is not is bad, right? Or has no effect on it, because the truth is it definitely does. But what I've learned, though, is that if you go back to the real principle that creates money in the first place, you'll always find a way to make more money. You will always find a way to become more prosperous. And it's simply this, is that dollars follow value. The more value you create for more people, the more money you make. I repeat, dollars follow value. The more value you create for other people, the more money you make. Money is just the byproduct of the value you're creating in a way that you're solving problems, serving people, or adding some kind of value in such a way that money is just the exchange to be able to get that value. And if you figure out how can you deliver the highest amount of value possible, how do you go about delivering, solving problems for people and adding value, or even just serving people in such a way that they want to have it in their life. In fact, they're going to say, I need that in my life. To give you an example, I was just interviewed on a podcast recently, earlier today before I recorded this. And the guy was talking a lot about, stewardship and building up the kingdom of God and things like that, right? And obviously we really connected on that front because we share those same beliefs. And it's interesting because, even as I started talking the show and even the whole purpose of money ripples, right? And the fact that you create more wealth and financial freedom for yourself, which allows you to create a ripple effect of greater nature, which ultimately really, I feel like it's a way to serve God better, right? Is that you can serve in whatever capacity or whatever way you believe in your faith or spirituality, it's you become a better servant for more people. The ironic thing is that as you become a better servant for more people, more money wants to follow. And that's the beauty of this. And at first, like I said, I believed that it was luck or exploitation or something that had to do it. I believed that in the world before, it was a zero-sum game. Either I win and you lose, or I lose and you win. I believe it was a scarcity world. Notice we keep coming back to this abundance and stewardship mentality because if you don't have this mentality, all this other stuff, even if you get it right on the investing side, the wealth won't really grow and you won't create true wealth in your life and in your family's lives as well. Because then it becomes very strategy based. And if you're just basing on strategy, eventually you'll find out that principles govern even over strategy. In fact, you might pick a strategy that violates the very principle we're talking about here. Because what if you went for a strategy saying, yeah, I know this kind of screws people over, but look at the money I'm making. Like I'm making 25, 30% a year, 50% a year, 100% a year. It always comes back to the principles of what makes it work. And the true principle is this, is that instead of focusing on selfishness, which is what greed is based around, right? And that's a scarcity mentality of selfishness that I have to, win, but then other people have to lose for me to win. Instead, you realize it's a win-win transaction that you create in the world, that it is an abundant place. And that through abundance creates a greater and lasting wealth that you would never get otherwise. Then things start to switch around. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not win-lose scenario. It's about creating the win-win. How do I create the win-win? In 2006, that's what changed for me. Understand, I often skip right to the point of making the investments. But the thing that got me to earn more income to then have money to put into those investments was learning this very thing. Dollars follow value. How do I go about creating a win-win? So instead of asking, how do I create more money? How do I create more income? How do I create more wealth? I didn't ask that. I was just asking, how do I create a win-win for people? Because value creation is the cause, money is the effect. Pure and simple. How do you go about creating value? There are a lot of people that do use this principle in a bad way, that they will lie and deceive. But I will promise you that there will be a point it catches up to them. There will be a point that they might end up in prison, they might end up out of business because eventually people see through the BS, right? They see through the crap. The reason why we've been around for so long is because we focus purely on that. In fact, what shocks people, and this shouldn't be a shocker, but it is, what shocks people is they're like, wait a minute, you actually practice what you preach and you deliver on it? You actually care about us? You actually want us to succeed? Yeah, that's the whole point. Why would I do this otherwise? I don't need your money. I don't need to do this business. You guys already know this. If you've been following me long enough, you know I have more than enough passive income that actually doing this business is just it's really more of a labor of love. It doesn't make me a lot of money. In fact, I'm investing more money in other people on my team so that we can create a bigger microphone or a megaphone, or podcast for that matter, or YouTube channel, so that you can actually find us, right? Because there's all these voices out there telling you to do different stuff that I know doesn't work. That's why I get so ticked off at financial advisors and financial pundits that tell you to keep doing the same old thing that still hasn't worked. And somehow we're still brainwashed to believe it's going to work, right? And so think about it from that standpoint, is that we're here for that very reason. We have that mission to say we can help a lot of people, and we know we can do that. And that's why we've been around. That's why our company's still here. That's why we don't pivot and move and change. I'll tell you, some people that are the most devious, I guess is a good word for it, are the ones that often will pivot and move and they'll change company names and do different things just to try to hide it when you try to Google them, right? Because people are like, oh, that company's bad. And so they'll trash that company name and say, hey, we're rebranding and we're going to be called this instead. So when you Google their name, you don't find all that bad press. Hey, go look it up. Look up our quote unquote bad press. I have had some people that I've seen online. It's very, very hard to find, but they're out there. I mean, it's not like we 100% of the time make everybody happy because it's just impossible to make everybody happy. But we do deliver on what we promise. That's the one thing we always do, right? And we do that because we know that dollars follow value. And I know what the more dollars I have, and this is another thing on the abundance mindset, understand that people in scarcity use people to make more money. Money is the end means. That's the end for them. That's it. Like they feel like somehow money is going to give them everything they want. But for somebody in an abundance, for a steward, they're going to say, no, money is the means. Serving people is the end. Because they know that if they can use that money to then serve more people, the money just follows anyways. And then it allows them to serve more people and keeps creating a bigger and bigger and bigger impact. And this cycles through. If you've been following this podcast, you're probably looking for great ways to create passive income right now, right? Well, we got you covered here with Central Lending. Central Lending specializes in alternative investments that actually are designed to create steady returns and long-term financial security for you and your family. Now, they prioritize transparency. They love, building those strong relationships, giving you that confidence and peace of mind, knowing that you have your money working harder for you, so you don't have to work so hard for that money. You want to learn more how to do that? Go to centrallending.com and check out what they've got today to create your passive income and wealth creation right now. That's the thing I've witnessed work over and over again. Even when I was flat broke, and people are like, "What do I do, Chris? Like, what if I don't have lots of money?" Do what I did. Focus and get obsessed over the question: how do I go about serving people, creating a win-win? How do I solve problems for them? What are the problems they're asking for? Can I uniquely solve that in a way that nobody else can, or even just solve it? Just to give people an option. There are so many problems out there that need to be solved, and you can solve it. Understand this, the billionaires that are out there, the wealthy out there, they've already figured this out. Now, some of them did have money as the means, but once you get so much money, they kind of lose focus for them. They realize that, wait, I can just create more money. Well, maybe I need to now I made 100 million. Now you have to make a billion, right? And they just keep setting different benchmarks and they do that, but it's unfulfilling for them. The ones that actually do it, what they find out instead is, no, it's about how do we serve people? How can we fulfill a need or create a want and fulfill that want? Understand Amazon. Amazon, like guys, we were doing just fine with bookstores, weren't we? But then Amazon came on the scene and they started finding a way to buy books online. And now pretty soon it's like this everywhere. People shop for everything. Now we got Amazon Prime trucks that show up and they're not just delivering value, they're delivering on an expedited level. Think about how fast you get some of your deliveries. Sometimes you order in the middle of the night, you get it the next day. When was that ever the case? You ever see the mail service do that? Come on, half the time they lose your crap, don't they? It's incredible, what you're able to do with that company. So the reason that Jeff Bezos has become so wealthy and that the company is worth so much is because he delivered so much value. Elon Musk, even though he can be crazy at times, he's still focused on how does he deliver that value? How does he give people what they want? How does he create an electric vehicle that's like a freaking, remote control car, just takes off, right? I mean, come on, the butt of all jokes was the electric vehicles were like the pieces of junk that can't even accelerate. And he proved that wrong, right? He figured out a way to launch a freaking rocket into space and land it and not just trash it like the government was doing. This is one of the greatest things about private industry and about private business is that a lot of times these guys, because of competition, because their own self-interest, because they realize if they help address other people's self-interest, then they meet their own self-interest. And because that ability to prosper and to grow and become wealthy is a driver, this is why the smart governments have figured out, hey, instead of us trying to solve problems because we're horrible at it, why don't we get the private industry to figure out how to solve those problems? This is why the government contracts with private industry so often, because they stink at it, right? Because they don't have the incentive. They just figure out, hey, we'll just print more money. We can figure out ways to get more on the budget side, right? No, private industry has a self-interest because they want to prosper. They want to grow. And I truly believe in the heart of all of us, no matter how big or small you think you want to be, or however you determine that, the truth is, I think we all have an innate desire within each human being to evolve and progress. We want to grow. We want to become something better. I don't know too many people say, I wish that my life just doesn't get any worse. It doesn't get any better. I think I just want to stay the same, or maybe my life wants to get worse. Usually people want to, over time, at least for the most part, want to up level. There could be trauma, there could be other emotions in the way that prevent people from wanting to do that. But for the most part, I think it's innately in us. I think it's kind of the God self in us that we want to progress and grow. We want to become more. We want to become better. And that could also mean becoming a bigger steward or having stewardship over more things. Not because it's just a bragging type of situation. Sure, in your ego mind, you might have something like that in there. But I'll tell you from my own experience, nobody cares. No, I mean, honestly, nobody really cares that much how wealthy you are, right? If you want to stroke your own ego, fine. But it's just useless. It's pointless. It's a frivolous game. What really is awesome is how do you go about using that stewardship, using your abilities, your talents, your time, your money, and everything else in bettering the world around you? Can you leave this planet better off than how you came into it? Can you at least contribute more than what you took from it? That is what a real, that's really what a creator does. That's what a steward does. Consumers just want to consume. Creators want to create and make something better. That is exactly the kind of person I'm talking about for the show. If you're the kind of person you just want to consume a bunch of crap and just live fat and happy, and in fact, you want to screw people over, this show isn't for you. You should move along. I'm talking to people that are good people that want to be good and want to treat others well as well. Wait, that sounded redundant. Want to treat people well too. you know, so that's where we come in, is that you want to really make the world better with the prosperity you have. So coming back to this, wealthy people, even those multi-billionaires you hear about, it's because they created value. Yes, even Bill Gates created value by trying to get a PC in every person's home versus making it inaccessible. Apple did some amazing things to help revolutionize, even if they weren't the ones that created the technology in the first place, right? That's always the debate, is did Steve Jobs steal it or not? Hey, that's possible. I mean, he might have paid or incentivized people to take that technology, but he was the best at communicating why we needed that technology, right? I mean, think about it. Like if you ever watched that, I think the movie was called Blackberry, if I recall, something like that. But it was talking about the owner of Blackberry. It's like that kind of biopic, right? And in that, like he just could not get out of his head of you needed a stylus. You had to use a stylus on your phone. He couldn't break that. Even though people said, hey, what they're doing with the iPhone, using the finger is genius. That's great. If I can do that with my finger, and now we can swipe and do all kinds of stuff, we love it. But he could not get past the freaking stylus because he wasn't listening to what people wanted. He wasn't, even though he started with solving a great need and giving people some great things, and he had the little buttons and stuff. Eventually people were like, get the buttons off and put it on the screen. That's brilliant. Now we have more of a screen to deal with, right? But again, he wasn't listening. He got caught in his own little mind. And when I say little, I mean, he had a brilliant mind, but he got caught up in that. And as a result, BlackBerry is pretty much non-existent. Research and Motion, you just don't hear about it. When I was a stock trader 20 years ago, Research and Motion was like the company to trade. That was the company you had in your watch list because you could make great money off of them because it was very easily predictable. They were making great money in the mid 2000s. Once we got into the late 2000s, they lost their finger on that pulse of what people really wanted. It is about how to create that win-win, solving problems, serving people. How do you create value where money is a natural byproduct? Now, bring it down to, away from the billionaires and let's get down to our level again. How do you go about doing that in your career, in your business, your line of work? Are you doing that in a way that you communicate it clearly? I'll tell you, it's not just about creating value. That's a good start, but it's got to be communicated. There's still got to be that aspect. That's why I tell people that do what you love, the money will follow, isn't true. Now, doing what you love, that others love you doing, the money can follow, especially if there's a way you can communicate it. I've seen many people that they do what they love, others love them doing it, but they sabotage their own results because one, they don't know how to run their own business, they can't manage their own finances, and they end up shooting themselves in the foot. There's got to be that way. So do what you love that others love you doing, and the money may follow. But I will tell you this, the formula is better off. So anyways, I'm not going to belabor this point too much, but before you start, assuming that any rich person, even if you're driving down the street and you see a nice big house, before assuming that these people are materialistic, that these people are selfish, that these people are just big, jerks, egotistical, jokes, I would ask yourself, is it me That's the egotistical jerk. Am I that? Because most of the time we project our beliefs onto other people, even if it's not who they are, especially when we don't know them. So if you think that rich people are egotistical, greedy jerks, maybe that's because you believe you would have to do the same thing to make money. What if that were all wrong? What if that was a complete lie? Because I'll tell you from my own experience, the people that I know, and I don't say I know a lot of billionaires, but I do know a lot of multimillionaires, even multi-decamillionaires. They're some of the most giving, caring people I have ever met. They're the people that actually are concerned with those around them. I'll tell you, broke people, and I know a lot of broke people too, because I was raised around them. They are more self-obsessed with their own situation, so self-centered on their own life, trying to survive and everything else. They don't even look at trying to help other people. Now there are always exceptions to that. I know this, okay? I know because even when I was broke, I was still focused on trying to serve people. Why? Because I knew that wealth creation and especially value creation to create wealth is a habit. So even if it meant I didn't make money from doing something, if it meant I'm just shoveling driveways for people in the middle of winter because that was something I could do to serve other people and try to create that karma that I knew would come back to me in some way, shape, or form, even if it's not from them. That's what I would do. If you focus constantly on how do I be a go-giver? How do I give value? How do I serve people? And how do I listen to what they're asking for? You might find out that you have the very answer that could be a multi-million dollar idea, something that can actually help you prosper. And as a result, because you're a great person, as your stewardship increases, you then share ways to help make that stewardship bigger by helping others around you. That is my true desire for doing this show. That's my true desire of all of our clients that we work with is that one, we can give you your life back faster by giving you financial independence and freedom faster. So then you have time freedom. And then with that time freedom, that money freedom, you can use that to serve other people. That is the ripple effect I'm here to create. So the choice is yours. Do you want to hold on to scarcity beliefs or do you want to believe that maybe, just maybe, wealth creation and the fact that people are wealthy is not a result of luck, exploitation, or just or screwing people over, right? Or just pure greed. But maybe it's the result of them finding ways to serve more people and solving problems, and then they just figured out a way to do it right. That I would challenge you to start questioning as you go about this week. So in the meantime, guys, make it a wonderful and prosperous and abundant week. Focus on being a wise steward, and make it a great day.